Hello, hello, hello. I'm greeting you in this stance because I'm excited to see you and because it's been shown that just standing like this can actually create a significant shift in mood, as evidenced by the body chemistry that we can study and see all the little changes when we do anything. We think anything, we do something physical, our body chemistry changes, and we'd like to affect it, obviously, in a positive way. So to use these tools, and one of them is this, right? It's open-hearted, it's engaged, it's alive, and it's particularly shown to help with depression or feelings, thoughts that might be negative or heavy. And so my topic this week is resiliency. What are the tools for resiliency? And I'll be kind of dropping little bits of it throughout our practice now and then. But one of the biggest things is about noticing where we are crispy, sticky, compressed feeling and trying to move that stagnation. And that creates a body and a being that's more resilient. So as we do our practice together and I mention little things, a reminder that almost any word that we use or concept to describe those things in the body could also be used to describe the afflicted mind states or heart states and so on, emotional states. So it's really fun to me. Of course, I was an English major philosophy minor, so I love metaphor. But to notice in our body or in the thoughts we're having in our practice, things that are revealing to us about our state of tissue, and our state of mind and emotion. And so we're going to be doing a good flow today. Take breaks when it's appropriate for your body. And a reminder of where that is. We're seeking the edge. The edge offers intensity. And if we're at the edge and not beyond it, we're not in striving, we should be able to breathe. We should be able to unclench tongue, jaw, eyes, maybe even soften into a smile, even when we're in something physically intense. And that's how we know that we're at a good edge. And when we sense that we might be about to move beyond that, we go into a resting pose or an easier version of something. And of course, when I'm offering a dog series flow between a warrior flow, you might go into child's pose or a forward hold or return here or here, even hands at the heart. Thank you so much for coming to the mat today. And I hope that you have the great pleasure, as I do, of some wonderful bird sounds that are drifting in. And I hope that maybe you can even hear mine over this sort of headphone microphone thing. I'm not sure, but I'm enjoying them and I'm interweaving them into my experience here on the mat. We're going to start off in child's pose. If that does not work for your body, then I would recommend actually front body, just laying flat on your belly. And if neither of those feel right, you'll go onto your back body because you're a good yogi and you know what you need in the moment. So whatever position you've found, I'd like you to notice that you are connected to the earth, your yoga mat. You can think of this as your own kind of personal flying carpet, your own little sacred space. This is your moment, your body, your breath. This is your yoga. There is nothing to know, do, or accomplish. Let's begin with 3 sighing breaths to calm the amygdala. A deep, long inhale, asking, is there more, through the nose, and exhaling through the mouth. And I find it interesting to observe the texture of those exhaling sighs. They often tell me a lot about what my emotion or mind states are, how much stress I've been carrying, and so on. And please remember that you can sigh throughout our practice as a way of just sort of popping the cork on any tension that might be gathering that you just recognize needs movement. And again, that's the key to being really resilient, is reducing stagnation, stuck, compressed, sticky. Tune into your breath. Now taking it only through the nose, unless you're stuffy and need to breathe through the mouth. Notice it rising and settling, and particularly witnessing the moment of pause that exists between the active turns of the breath. We can add our points of introversion. You don't have to use all of them, of course. You might turn your gaze up and in towards the center of the forehead. Lightly connect the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth. And engage your throat lightly to create ujjayi, great sounding breath, or ocean sounding breath. And with that deep attention on breath, also now begin to notice body sensation or experience of breath. Belly expanding. I hope in your present position you're feeling some movement into the back body, the ribs, noticing where fabric is moving against your skin. Throughout our practice, always going into any organic movement that your body is asking for. That is never the wrong thing. It's always the right and powerful thing to create a true yogic experience, that yoking together of body, mind, and spirit, and clean flow of energy. And I'm going to begin now taking my hands and arms to one side. I'm going to lift my chest to make that easy, and then replace my head if possible, and slowly deepen from hip to hand, feeling that long side body stretch. And again, you might be inspired in organic movements, kind of shimmying the shoulders, looking under one armpit, clenching and opening the hands. And then I'm going to lift my chest to, again, make that journey to the other side, safe for the shoulders, settling in on the forehead. Applying breath with curiosity, finding the gap, and also tracking, witnessing the sensations created by the breath, the massage. And returning to center, nice support of the core, tucking the tailbone to bring my knees beneath me. I'm now going to come into a little cow-cat, drawing the heart forward, tilting the tailbone back. Exhaling, tucking the tailbone. Intelligent hands. Letting breath initiate motion, which is extremely difficult. Our mind gets very bossy, and of course you hear me say certain poses, and the instinct is to just go do that thing. But try to ask, is there more? Is there more? Inhale. Where do I find that last sip of breath stretching me? Is there more? Exhale. Can I press more out in cat back by really using that same compression breath action? A couple more, and this week reintroducing three-part breathing. So as you're holding in your cow pose till the end of the inhale, see if you can invite breath in the lower belly, the rib cage or diaphragmatic stage, and then the clavicle breath. They empty in whatever order. A couple more. Inhaling, low belly, diaphragm, rib cage, Chest and heart space. Is there more? I love this shape because it really helps you feel that last bit of stretch. Exhaling, cat back. All right, one more. And we're going to use our next cat back to take us into our first downward facing dog of the day. Curl those toes under, and as you're ready, power up through that core body. Ha! Send the hips up and back. You might begin immediately to pedal. That's usually my instinct, so I'm sort of straightening one leg, working the heel towards the floor, and then the other. So good for the feet, and you might feel it all the way up into the calves, hamstrings, hips. You can take it out wide to the edges of the mat, getting a little side movement. You might rotate and kind of look under one armpit as you're pressing that direction and then the other. So I'm kind of bending my right knee and looking under my right armpit as my hips head right, and then bending my left knee and sending my hips to the left as I can smile at you from under my left armpit. Lovely. And if you would please drop your knees, take your hands forward, maybe about a hand's length, so that as you come forward with the shoulders, they should arrive directly above the wrists. Or the hands, the palm. I didn't go quite far enough forward, I notice. And so I'm going to adjust my hands. Good. Take a nice long inhale, powerfully tucking the core, the pelvis, and getting that core engaged as you slowly bend the elbows for chaturanga. Good. Release to the floor and release the hands back, head to the side. You might sighing breath. Otherwise, just tuning into that heart rate you've created. When you're ready to move on, I'm going to invite us in jet airplane. So I'm going to rotate my shoulder heads down the back, fingertips tenting, engaging firmly the triceps in towards the ribs, pelvis anchored. Inhale, extend. Exhale, return. Remember, this isn't about getting high off the floor. The height does not matter. This is about that wonderful feeling of rooting through the pelvis and thighs and extending and elongating through the heart. If you're okay doing a couple more, join me in now reaching one arm forward as you extend and returning. Other arm reaching forward. You can sweep or you can just bring it up. Notice what your shoulder wants today. And return. Marvelous. Relax your head to the other side. Let those arms get heavy. Bend the knees and just gently windshield wiper side to side. Invitation for a brief pre-bow to stretch out that front body. So you're either reaching for the ankles or for a strap, but either way, you want that pelvis anchored. And then think about those thighs moving towards each other. Flare those yoga toes. Squeeze those glutes to feel that quad stretch. And you can unsqueeze and re-squeeze. Reimagine a block between the thighs. If appropriate, a few rounds in and out of bow. Inhaling, press the ankles back into the hands. And exhaling, return. Breath initiating motion. So again, don't try to match what I'm doing exactly. Even if you end up doing extras or fewer or whatever, great. Following the breath. Inhaling, extending. Exhaling, returning, and pressing to your child's pose, pelvis anchored, shoulder heads and elbows anchored. So it's a really powerful movement back to child's pose, not floppy. And nice deep breath into that back. Reminder, this is a self-massage. You're seeking the ah, even inside of intensity. Tucking the tailbone, come on up. If you can be in kneeling, we're going to start from here. If you cannot, then you would just do kind of a standing version. And then as you're ready, we're going to take that right foot forward in a nice long lunge. And I say long because I want my hips forward of that back knee. I'm not right over it. I'm going as deep as I can. My front knee is over my front heel. I just want you to pulse here with me. And again, you could do a standing version of this as well, but we will be doing some good lunging in our warriors as well. And holding at your edge, possibly adding arms up and getting that deep stretch through the front body. Deep inhale into that hip and belly. Exhaling, release. You might press all the way back to child's pose, arms extended. And inhaling, hands on hips, step the other foot forward, pulsing. So reminder that when we are in this kind of lunge versus warrior two, for example, the hip bones are orienting forward. In this case, left hip bone back, right hip bone forward. So we end up with that kind of internal thigh rotation versus away. Hold forward in your edge. Reach from your foot or back knee all the way up through your middle fingers. Feel breath stretching, massaging. If you would like to briefly reach up through the head, you certainly may. Don't drop it back. Exhaling, return child's pose. Good. We're going to tuck that tailbone and come onto our hands again, kind of in table pose, but once again, walking your hands forward for a knee down chaturanga, knee down plank right here. Inhaling. Check if you feel the weight in your wrists. If so, move the hands back. We want them in the palms. Exhaling, chaturanga. See if you can hold even with the elbows. Elbows anchoring in, shoulder heads down, and then feel free to drop. Roll out wrists if you need to. Otherwise, right where they were, pelvis anchored, we're going to pulse in and out of cobra. Inhaling, draw the heart forward, and exhaling, return. So this is much like jet airplane, with a different arm position. And in this, you can kind of imagine that the hands are pulling the mat backward. And of course, you're not actually moving the hands. It's just an engagement, a tractioning. And my hope is you'll feel how that really engages your side body, those lat muscles. I couldn't think of the word. One more. And then if you can hold and see if you're able to press onto the tops of the feet in your upward facing dog. So it's the very deep engagement in the tailbone coming from your knees down onto the tops of the feet, thighs firmly engaging towards the sky. Exhaling, downward facing dog or child's pose. And again, if you're going to dog, you can always do it via the knees or make it more intense. And your job is to seek that edge, that right level of intensity. Vision directed between the feet, drishti gaze. I'm going to come into a sighing breath and notice how that feels upside down. How much can I pour out of the top of my head? That felt so good. Do it again. And we know that breath is a great way to release against stagnant energy, afflicted mind states, judging good or bad. During these times of stress for a lot of people, it's really easy to get into so many thoughts that are fearful or judging and fearful of the future and so on. And what's important is to notice and make sure that they are not filling our space. Walk your hands back to your forward fold ragdoll at the back of the mat. Nice compression exhale, deepen your fold. Inhaling, drop the butt like you're going into a chair and sweep or reach up. Exhaling, prayer hands. I'm actually touching them to my third eye first, my thumbs, and then to my heart space. You might pause, close eyes. Tune in to breath rising and settling and the pause between. We're going to step sideways on our mats, straddle. And actually this position of the arms reaching out that I showed you in the beginning, when you take the feet really, really wide, we're in what's called five-pointed star. The head is the fifth point. It took me a while to figure that out. So you're activating through all 5 points. Good. We're just going to hold here for a nice long breath. And then I'm going to offer a little bit of arm movement. If it's bothersome for neck or shoulders, either just don't do it or do it lower. And that is that you're just going to take your palms and face the floor and do a little pulsing, pushing, 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 pushing. Neck staying soft. Good. Remember, you can do it down here too. Good. And then take your palms forward and do a little pushing, pushing, flapping of wings, however you'd like to think of it. I've gotten to see so many migrating birds that have returned doing their wing thing, and it's really been fun. All right, and now take it down, nice and low down, so you can feel those same muscles I was talking about, flapping, 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 pulsing, squeezing, pushing. I'm really recommending getting those TheraBands out. If you haven't used those in a while, they're a great way to release stagnant and kind of scar tissue and stuff like that, and also build strength. And relax. Good. Rotate that right foot to the right. Pulse a couple of times. Check your alignment. Get it so that you just feel super strong and centered. This is our warrior, our Virabhadrasana warrior. It's an emotional warrior. We want to feel strong and then peaceful. So finding that spine nicely aligned right above the tailbone and reaching out through that heart space. Maybe platter hands. The right hand is considered the energetic offering hand, offering of gifts, insights, whatever you'd like to offer up out to another, to the greater world, maybe the beautiful trees and plants, maybe it's gratitude. Inhaling, come back to center, and we'll explore the other side again. First, just a nice pulsing of the hips. I find it really important to observe our body in very simple individual postures before trying to take them into flow. Otherwise, we get really just kind of lost in what we're doing and what's the next thing. So please here, really wake up those feet, wake up those hands, wake up that core integrity, shoulder head sliding down. Platter hands if you like, and that left hand, our energetic receiving hand. Is there any form of insight or support? Again, the power to reach forward is coming from that back leg and foot, which are reaching back, pushing. Good. One more. And return to your center. Good. We're going to fold into straddle. Bend the knees. Let that head hang. And side to side. And this is yours. This is your massage. You know, maybe you're up here with hands on the thighs. Maybe you're going super low. Maybe you're going side to side. And one of my favorite things to add here is a twist. So I'm going to go to one side and I'm going to take my hand to the other thigh and just invite a rotation open. If you want to add the arm, you can. And then the other side, rotating open with or without that extended arm. Breathing. It doesn't matter in a lot of these really how you're pairing the breath. It's that you're breathing. So just let the breath tell you what feels appropriate. Do you want to hold and squeeze? Do you want to move and invite breath to fill you? And slowly come to a still point. Center. I'm going to walk my feet in a little bit. Rebend the knees for a brief yoga mudra. So intertwining the hands behind the back and pressing the fists to the sky. And then very slowly sliding those shoulder blades along the body by kind of taking my fists towards the butt and towards the sky again. Remember, this is a great place to use your strap or a belt or a sock if you're not getting far. If your hands are stuck down by the butt and you're not getting that shoulder blade sandwich, give yourself something to hang on to. And release. Good. Come into a little squat to come up. Big root and reach. Exhaling, prayer hands. You might have your eyes closed, once again tuning in towards that third eye point, or in a soft drishti gaze on the floor or wall before you. But your attention is inward, noticing that heart rate. And remember, you can always to release any tensions that you recognize. They don't have to have a name. You just feel the energy. And also powerful compression exhale. right? Really engages that center, and we can imagine energy moving out our head. I often think of Wilma from the Flintstones, how she would go, woo! And she would just, the steam would come out of her ears. So if you just have any form of frustration or anything, again, you don't even have to name it, but you might know it, move it. Use your body. All right. And let's come into our mountain stance. So feet are parallel in mountain, big toes rooting other toes, stretching, reaching out. And please find hands in prayer. Find breath inside of this shape, which is deeply active and also soft and resilient, receptive to the breath. And on your next long inhale, rooting, reaching, you might send the hips forward, back bend, always an option. Exhaling, forward fold, swan dive, rag doll, however you want to think about all this. Inhaling, hands on shins, extend halfway. Exhaling, step back, left leg only into a warrior one stance. Angle those hips, right hip bone back, and sweep up. Hips sending forward, heart forward, maybe up. Exhaling, plant the hands and step back to your plank if you can. Otherwise, downward dog. And of course, plank, knees down, always an option. Inhaling slowly here into plank. Exhaling, chaturanga, chest preceding the hips. Either all the way to the floor for cobra or scooping to upward dog. Or remember, you can always come into upward dog from cobra. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh. And you might walk the hands back to the feet as we did a moment ago, or you might simply lunge one leg forward at a time. Returning to our mountain, hands in prayer, or remember you can always return in flow to arms down as well. Inhaling, root and rise, sweep up. Exhaling, fold, compress, empty. Inhaling, extend, halfway up. Exhaling, step back with that right foot only, warrior one. So now the toes are at about 1 o'clock, if that front of you is noon. Inhaling, sweep up. And exhaling, plant the hands and step back to plank. Try to reduce the swoosh, meaning try to lift the foot rather than drag it. It just means we're getting our core involved. Inhaling, plank. Exhaling, chaturanga. Maybe you're just going 1 inch. This is a great chaturanga. And either all the way to the floor for cobra or scooping to your upward dog. And exhaling, downward facing dog. Inhale, exhale, sigh, or you might be finding some resting pose here, child's pose. We're going to essentially come into a similar flow, but from here. If you don't want to be on your hands this much, then go from the front of the mat again, where you're essentially stepping back 1 foot and rising up into warrior one. We're going to take the right leg flying nice and high. Go ahead and bend the knee, rotate the hip open if you'd like to. Make sure you're really activating through both arms, getting the chest towards that standing leg. Exhaling, neutral the hip to bring that right foot forward. Left foot is flat in that warrior one stance, hips rotated back. Inhale, root and rise. Exhaling, plant the hands and step back to your plank. Remember, you can always go to dog, downward facing dog instead, and then join us. Inhaling, plank. Exhaling, chaturanga. You can see I'm kind of lifting my hips a little to help my chest proceed. Inhaling, scooping upward dog or the former options. And exhaling, belly takes you back, downward dog. Inhaling, left leg flying. My gaze is on my floor foot or right between the feet. Bending that left knee, opening the hip. Check that that floor foot's stable.
Check that both arms are pushing, chest straight back towards that standing leg, even though you're rotated open. Exhale, rotate neutral again, and bring that left foot forward. Grab it if you've got to get it right under your knee. Back foot plants, and inhale, root and rise. Exhale, release, and step back plank. Remember, you might just be like, no, I'm holding that warrior one. That felt great. I'll meet you somewhere else. Awesome. Inhaling plank. Exhaling chaturanga. Inhaling cobra or upward dog. Always activating, no wings, no shrugs. And exhaling back, either child's pose or downward facing dog. If you've gone to dog at some point, you might want to walk those hands back to your forward fold ragdoll to roll out the wrists. And that's what I'm doing here in child's pose. Deep breath into the back body, letting the belly expand. And I'm going to invite us in pigeon pose. And of course, you could certainly pop to your back body for the reclined pigeon or alternate pigeon, where you're just going to cross one ankle onto the opposite thigh. I'm going to invite us into classic pigeon flow. So I'm going to bring my knees back under me, and I'm going to come from downward facing dog. You could, of course, just come directly from your knees and bring one knee forward. Again, lots of stability here. Shoulder heads anchoring out and back. And take that right leg flying, open it again, really working a squeeze of that left butt cheek. That's what keeps me from winging out to the side. Exhaling, strong core support as I choose to lightly set down that right knee behind the right wrist. Good. And if you notice any knee discomfort or ankle, etc., then you're going to go into that pigeon alternate on the back body. Reminder, if you're right ankle over onto left thigh, then you're rotating slightly left. If you're in classic pigeon with me, come on down as low as you can, and then make sure to provide a support for the forehead. So if it's stacked fists or a block, if it's all the way to the floor, fine. Just find a place that feels good where you can breathe and relax into. And please witness where you're feeling the stretch. Maybe make little organic side-to-side movements. If you want to deepen the pose, you could use your back foot to pull the body a little into a deeper angle. If you've got your hands on the floor, you might make a triangle with the index finger and thumbs. That can be a nice feeling of kind of conclusion and settledness in the pose. We actually say in yogic science it's a kind of a neural connection. We know that our hips hold a lot of tension, both physical and energetic. So what's there? And would it feel good to do 3 breath releases with me? If so, please join in. Long inhale, big exhale through the mouth, just dumping it, or do a lion stretch. Lion stretch is that sticking the tongue out or opening the jaw wide. Nice. And as you're ready, come on out through waking pigeon, that just drawing the heart forward. And then to release, lots of ways you could go straight to dog, or one of my preferred after a deep stretch like that is just bring my left knee forward into table so I can release that right leg and kind of give it some range of motion through the hip and through the knee. Again, finding your path into your hip stretch on the other side. If you are in downward dog and want to join me, send that left leg flying. Rotate the hip open, vision on that floor foot. And slowly set that left knee down behind the left wrist. Again, some of you might have different versions of this. If you bring your knee to the center and that's your best thing, great. If you have been doing that and have not tried the knee more out to the side and behind the wrist, please try it. It might have something kind of good for you. Just see.
And I know some people practice kind of leaning outside onto the hip, which I've shown you before as well, and that's all good. Otherwise, wherever you are, find a settling place for the head if you can. It's not always an option, depending on how you are or what angle. And then notice if you move a little side to side, where's your best settling place? Tune into the breath. You might use your back foot to pull a little further back or deepen the angle. And of course, we know that the two sides of the body are often different. Let us be in witnessing, observing. This is a pose I've often noticed in myself, and I've had other people share also, that it can sometimes create a feeling like a sadness or a frustration or almost an exhilaration, like a beautiful release of joyful energy and life force. So just don't be surprised if some of those things happen. And again, you don't have to name them even, but it's just the body moving energy. So it's the yoga working. Let's come into 3 sighing breaths. I'm going to come up because I want to do a little lion stretching. Inhaling slow, deep, and wide, and releasing through the mouth. Coming on up to your waking pigeon, draw that heart forward, and in your own time, releasing out again. Maybe you want to come onto the knee. And when you would, please join me again in downward facing dog, letting breath initiate motion. So inhaling cow, exhaling cat to downward facing dog. You might choose to stay in cow cat, especially if your wrists are feeling that dog is too much today, right? So lots of places that we can go to continue the breath flow and the little bit of intensity that we're building here. We're going to come into some more warrior flow. And so if you would like to start again from the front of the mat, that's totally an option. We're just going to do a full-on warrior series, and you can start from standing crane or from dog. Those of us in downward dog are going to take right leg flying. Standing crane, it would be left knee lifted to step back. If you're here in dog, maybe you want to open up that hip. And slowly close it as you create your lunge. So now you could come into crescent lunge on the ball of the back foot or plant that warrior 1 foot. Either way, steer your hips. Come on up. If you're in crescent lunge, it's a little more of a balance challenge, right? So you might want to check that you're really rooting through that internal line of the foot. Check that front knees right over the heel. And where do you want to be with the arms? What feels good today? Make sure this is not stagnant. This is powerful and engaged, but it is ever changing. You might add a little yoga mudra arms here. And as you're ready, rotate those hips open into Virabhadrasana 2. Thighs externally rotating at the arms. Shoulder head sliding down the back. And of course, you can just play with your head and looking forward and back, adding any little organic movements that make it yours. Try to find that place with the head directly above the torso or above the tailbone, because that's a state of ease and strength. On a long inhale, reaching up and back, and maybe it's straight or bent leg, maybe it's first one and then the other. I'll often straighten my leg initially and then kind of bend the knee and sink the hips forward again. Again, please make it organic, making sure that the breath is encouraging you to move, that you're not holding anywhere, that you're gathering a lot of tension. On exhale, lateral stretch. So elbow starting on the thigh to make sure you've got that core engagement, shoulder stack. Maybe you go deeper, hand to floor, or finding the block. And reaching forward over the head. One of the pulsings I like to do here is kind of rotating my chest a little towards the floor and then rotating it open and back and just noticing, wow, it's such an amazing range of motion and a different stretch when I finally get that left shoulder stacked over the right. One more long inhale. We're going to go into a twist. I'm going to exhale and plant that left hand, come onto the ball of the back foot, walking that right foot over to the right. And if you prefer, dropping the knee, otherwise you're staying in a lunge. And either way, we're going to come into our twist. We want that right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. Powerful cat back as I place my left elbow on my right thigh. My vision's on my floor foot, and I'm going to powerfully squeeze my thighs. I'm really rotating that left hip forward. That gives me stability. And I might just stay here breathing and pulsing, or I might place my hands in prayer. And though you may not be able to see my forearms, they're making one straight line. So I'm not collapsed, bringing them together. They're making a nice long line. And I'm really trying to get my left chest as far away from my left bicep as I can. Make sure if you're on the foot, that back foot, that the leg is super active, reaching towards the sky. It's a balance challenge, which means it's also a breath challenge. Be here now. Big inhale. Exhale, rotate, belly to spine. Ring the rag. Don't make your body do it without that core strength. And release. Step back. Downward facing dog. Again, you could go immediately into child's pose, take a break if you like, whatever would feel good. You might come into another dog series, or I also sometimes like doing a pumping, like so, where I'm engaging forward in my upward dog directly and exhaling, pressing back to downward facing dog. If you've never tried it and your wrists are feeling good today, go for it. So you're kind of coming into your little cat back, squeezing the thighs towards the sky as I let the hips engage downward. I'm squeezing the glutes like I do in jet airplane or bow, and that heart's drawing forward away from the heels, which are pressing back. And it's important as you do this one, we'll do it one more time, that your stance isn't too long. If your feet are too far back or your hands are too far forward, you're going to feel very kind of collapsed instead of strong and stable, like a good suspension bridge. And we're going to come onto our back body, however you'd like to get there. I'm going to bring one knee forward like we did in pigeon and just sweep the other leg around to come on down into bridge. So I know we often start our practice with this. I'm using it here now as a wonderful way to rebalance out my muscle groups and so on after all that hip work and or warrior work and spine work. So when you are ready, make sure your feet are no more than 6 inches apart. Gather a long inhale, work those shoulder heads beneath you, and exhaling, press the hips on up. Good, we're going to come out on the inhale, so slowly down, asking, is there more? Can I keep squeezing those thighs together? Is there more? Exhaling, rise up. So I'm imagining a block or something between my thighs that's allowing me to squeeze inward. And inhaling slowly down. Is there more? And last time we're going to hold up and add our leg extensions. This is so fabulous for stabilizing our core body and our spine. So as you're ready, slowly extending forward through one heel and then the other. And you can hold as long as you need to check that you are stable and even, or if like I'm noticing this whole week that my left hip has been a little more likely to drop. And so I'm going to hold and see what does it take to bring it back up into stability and evenness. And that's why I've got my hands on my hips, because it's really giving me a nice measuring tool, an awareness tool. And when complete, go ahead and release. Bring the knees into the belly. And inviting you in a spinal twist. So if you prefer a different kind of twist, a seated twist or a single knee down twist, you certainly could. Otherwise, I'm just going to lower my knees to the left. I want to make sure my feet are flexed, thighs are active. And then I'm going to reach my right arm out behind me. There's no intention or goal for it to reach the floor. The thighs are what I want activated onto the floor and grounded. That's our anchor from which I can open and kind of close, let the breath move me, let my head rotate behind. Another little tool is that I can scooch my left shoulder over to the left a little bit, and that'll bring me a little more onto my shoulder blades instead of kind of the outside deltoid. But that may not make sense in your body if you're pretty deeply onto your shoulder. You might be like, I can't do that, and that's just fine. But just check and see if that kind of scooch is available. Would it feel good to extend that top leg? And I often like to look at it and kind of check out what's happening and make sure I'm really flexing through my feet. And then taking my left hand, I'm just sort of encouraging a little support to encourage it to reach and maybe to encourage it to come up a little higher towards my ear. And meantime, I'm going to play with that back arm and find just the right angle and place. And a little add-on I'm having fun with this week is rotating the hand as far as you can one way and the other. And so wherever your arm is behind you, go ahead and play with that. And notice if you've got, again, kind of sticky, tight spots is the best way I can think of it. And that's often a great clue, like, oh, I need some massage there. I need some TheraBand work or some Tiger Balm. Or I'm doing something repetitively that's stressing those muscles. And that's really easy to do. Shoulders take on a lot of stresses from repetitive movements. So coming to the other side when you are ready and exploring first the anchoring of the legs. I'm using my right hand to anchor the legs down on towards the floor, just to encourage them. And then exploring that back arm, exploring the neck and head position, exploring breath in this shape. So I didn't say it on the other side, but my hope is that when you find a place of good stretch, and maybe it's with that leg extending, which I'm adding now, when you find a place of good stretch, what is it like to breathe there? Can you breathe there? And I often say you have to kind of will the breath past the resistance of the shape. So in the spinal twist, the only way that I am actually going to get a full inhale is if I let the inhale demand that the body come out of the twists a little bit and then deepen. It doesn't have to be a lot because a lot of the space for the inhale can be made in the belly. Let it push out like a big Buddha belly. Again, playing with that extended leg if you're using it. And when you are ready, bend the knee again and come on back. And then I often like just doing a little back and forth with the legs. And it's just a kind of a nice resolution. So speaking of resolution, we're going to be coming into a little Shavasana in a moment. Not a long one because I know on these nice days I want to give you some shorter classes because you want to bop outside or whatever you're up to. But take a moment. Maybe you want to put the block under the sacrum, and that's going to be your resting and Shavasana time. And that would be a great thing to do. You've got plenty of time to do that and still have a classic corpse pose, or if you like, a seated meditation with me. If you're in that position, please take the time to notice if you can fully relax into it. Again, that's that edge. Even in these more restorative poses, we want to make sure we're in a place that allows the body to feel safe, to evolve, to release stagnation, stored tensions, and so on. I talk a lot about stagnation, and if you have studied any Asian medicine or met with a acupuncturist or someone, you'll know that Asian medicine considers basically that almost anywhere we experience pain or illness is because of something that is stagnant, something that isn't moving properly. And that has made a lot of sense to me in my body, but also again in my emotional states. So it's a really useful word, and it's been fun because I know a lot of people are decluttering right now. They're inspired to declutter their spaces, their houses. And we know how good that feels, right? The incredible uptick of life force and energy and joy. And a sense of what's possible. The ability to even be present moment seems to increase when the old that doesn't belong anymore has gone on, right? So really when we're doing yoga, when we are, you know, dealing with, again, anything on an emotional level, maybe it's journaling about something we're stressed out about or whatever, we are moving stagnation. When you are ready to come into your resting posture, please find your way to your back body. If you want to be on your back with your legs up the wall, if you'd like to be in a seated meditation with me, please do. Um, and I want to share a wonderful quote. It's by Thomas Merton, and it basically says, God cannot fill a mind and body that is already full. Is it mind and body or body and heart? Hold on. Cannot fill a heart and mind that is already full. Two out of the three. So I just love that. It's a great reminder of our responsibility and the value to create receptive space, whatever version that takes in our life, whatever form. So, in fact, today I'm not playing any music because I feel that the music of the birds that I'm hearing is just lovely, and I don't want to fill the space with other notes. I want to be able to hear them, my heart rate, my breath. So, when you are ready, please find your inward state, your resting state. Might want to cover yourself with a shawl, and whatever position you find, take a moment, as we did at the beginning of practice, to once again ground. Turn your gaze up and in and give yourself to the ground, to your yoga mat, to this moment, this body, this gentle breath. Witnessing the breath rising and settling, and also witnessing when or if our mind wanders off, that's its nature. And beautifully, even when our mind is overactive, hyperactive, we still gain the benefits of meditation. It's the most efficient, accessible way that I know of to consistently improve our nervous system and our heart and mind. Breath rising and settling. The practice of yoga was traditionally designed to help prepare us to meditate. And because it does tend to create such a quieting and a spaciousness, it also creates a beautiful place for us to set intention, to use mantra to decide what would we like our space to be filled with. Maybe it's simple but powerful gratitude. What does it feel like to think of something you're grateful for? And what does that create in your body? Maybe there's another form of energy that you're wanting to bring in to your fresh and open space. What is that word or thought, that mantra? You might repeat it a few times in your mind's eye. Breathe it in. Picture it filling all the corners, all the closets, your big toe. Encouraging you, if you come up with something that feels powerful, some insight, to write it down. It doesn't have to be a long journal entry, but these moments of insight can be things that we can return to when we find ourselves off center or going down a path again of afflicted mind states of fear and worry and judgment and aversion, and we feel ourselves tightening up. We can return to that wisdom, our wisdom that we gained in our practice. I thank you so much for joining me at the mat today. And as we Om, I like to send out the gifts of our practice to those who might need it most, but who might not have gotten to a yoga mat today. Maybe they'll never get to a yoga mat, or even to the kinds of experiences that also create these gifts. So if you'd care to join me on the first Om, I'll be sending those gifts in towards myself. On the second, on out to a particular person in need or for whom I have concern. And the last Om on out to you and my whole community. Thank you again so much for being here. If you'd like to join me in Om, gathering a long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste.